There are two ways to change the flow of a loop, either a for loop or a while loop, and that's using either a break or a continue statement. And I'm going to demonstrate both of those in this lesson. Let's start with the continue statement. I'm going to write a program that counts the spaces in a string. So I'm going to write a string. There are spaces in the string. And if we look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. Now I'm going to create a variable called numSpaces and set it equal to 0. Now we're going to write a for loop that starts at the 0 position. Well, I can't remember if we've talked about this or not, but when you look at a string, each character in the string has a position. That position starts at 0. So the T in there is at position 0. The H is at position 1, the E is at position 2, and so on and so forth. So we want to start at the 0 position, so we'll set I equals 0. We want I to go through 1 less than the length of the string. And it turns out there's a method called length that you can use with the string that returns the length of a string. We want it to go less than the length of the string because the length of the string is going to be 1 more than the total number of positions. So if the length of this string is 27, then the last position where this G is will be 26. I don't actually know exactly how long it is. It's probably not quite that long. But you get the idea. So we want our loop to run from 0 through 1 less than the length of the string. And then we want to increment it by 1. We want to go 1 position at a time through the string. And then what we want to do is we want to see if the character that we're at is a string or not a string. If it's not a string, we're going to continue and skip that position and go to the next one. If it is a space, then we want to count it. So here's how we're going to do that. If spaces dot, and here's a new method, char at I, char at returns the character at that position in the string. So I is going to be each successive position in the string. So if it's not equal to a space, which we can represent by a space in between 2 single quote marks, then we want to continue. And continue will simply take us to the next value of I. If that's false though, then we want to increment numSpaces by 1. I don't have to use an if else, I can just use an if, and then numSpaces is only incremented if this test is false. Otherwise, if it's true, we're going to continue and we're going to go back to the next value of I and then check the relational expression again. So that's all we have to do for the loop. So we'll close off the body and then we'll write out a little statement that says there are numSpaces there. Let's save it, then compile it. Java C Cap 9 Part 7.java, Java 9 Part 7. There are 5 spaces, and that's correct. So to review, we use continue when we want to prematurely force the loop to go to the next iteration. There's almost always other ways to write programs so you don't have to use continue, but sometimes the clearest way, in this case it may be that, is use the continue statement rather than use some sort of convoluted logic to get the same effect. Now let's look at the break statement. First of all, I want to comment out this code so we don't execute it again. This program is going to be a little bit different. What we're going to do here is we're going to play a little guessing game that is essentially a never-ending game where the user is going to be continually prompted to guess a number. And we're only going to stop the program if the guess is correct. So it could conceivably go on forever. I'm only doing it to demonstrate how the break works, not because it's necessarily a smart program to write. So we need a scanner object, so I imported the scanner class above. We'll start the program out by creating an int variable, and we're going to actually assign a number here. You'll get the idea here in a sec. And then we're going to int guess, like so. Now we're going to say systemout.print, enter your guess, guess equals input.nextInt. Forgot to create a scanner object. I just assumed it was input. Let me do that real quick. That's going to go right here. Scanner input equals new scanner system.in. And actually, now that I'm looking at this, let's go ahead and put it inside the loop. I was going to prompt first, but we don't really need to do that because we're going to use a special little loop called a while true loop that's going to run continuously. So we're going to prompt the user here And then we're going to say if guess equals number, break, otherwise just keep going, and that's it. There's nothing else to the loop but that. We're just going to go back up to the prompt. We don't really need a prompt outside of the loop. So let's see how that works. And we can make the program stop easily because we know what the number is. It's 7. If we assign it randomly, we'd have to guess. So we'll say 5, 4, 2, 9, 7. Okay, and it stops. Let's clear the screen and do it again. 12, 3, 89, 7. So you see what happens. If the number the user enters is not equal to the number that we've assigned, then we just keep on looping. If the guess is equal to the number that we assigned, then we break. And because we don't have to do anything else after the program, we break out of the loop and go to the next part of the program, which is the end of the program. So the program just stops. That's how break works. Break will take you completely out of the loop altogether, whereas continue will simply take you to the next iteration. Now, having shown you these two ways to interrupt the flow of a loop, let me warn you again that they really shouldn't be used all that often. You should always use logic that would allow the loop to end normally. But there are situations when you can't, and when you can't, you can use one of these two statements, either continue or break, to have your program work the way you need it to. That ends our primary discussion of looping, at least for now, because we are going to look at some other types of loops later in the course. But now we're going to move on to the exercises and do an exercise or two with while loops.